Hey everybody, it's John Wolpert here with the Baseline Protocol office hours. We do this every week. We do this every week at noon U.S. Eastern, and now also in India on the time zone. I think it's 6 o'clock Saturday nights. Is that right? Which
Yeah,
is 8:30 in the morning U.S. Eastern.
yeah.
So hi Samrat. Samrat's the host of that show, which is great. We're growing here at the Baseline community. For those of you who don't know the Baseline community, go to baseline-protocol.org and learn all you can. We're going to be doing a big upgrade to that site soon with lots more content and lots more in the way of documentation and tools and resources for people to get going on baselining. And with that, we have a couple of really special guests today. Dan Burnett from the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance and Guy Martin. Dan is the Executive Director of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. And Guy Martin, the Managing Director, Executive Director, sorry if I didn't get that right.
Same thing, ED.
ED at the OASIS Open. I always want to say, Guy, OASIS Foundation because it's easy for my mouth to say, but I know that that's not correct.
Yeah, OASIS Open. I don't know. I think we've been going back and forth on, are we a consortium or are we a foundation?
Well, I always usually say that you're the venerable standards body behind things like SGML, SAML, AMQP, MQTT, and other things.
Yeah, but that also makes us sound old, John. I mean, we've been around for a while, but
hey, yeah. Here, this is the baseline. Boring is the new exciting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We have Jack Wiring here, Jack Leahy, Ryan Fish, Alessandro Gash, Niv Avaram, a friend I haven't seen in a while, Ty Colvard, Lucas Rodriguez, Lauren Gibson, Sam Stokes, Boris Breslov, and Elliot Harris. So we've got a good panel here today. And I hear that we're going to get another couple of folks in to talk about an exciting demo that is about to break. And I'll keep the powder dry for that. But with that, Dan, Guy, why don't you give us an overview of the big news about EEA and the EEA community projects?
Dan, why don't you start?
Sure. So you may have seen the announcement. We're pleased to announce or reiterate that the Ethereum OASIS Open project is now the EEA community projects. So what that means is that there is, of course, the name change, but practically speaking, it means that we are EEA will be taking over marketing of the work. We are looking to see if we can find some additional collaboration opportunities. The governance is going to remain exactly the same. So the governance today for the for that effort consists in the project governing board, which consists of members from basically individuals from the sponsor members. And so that's remaining exactly as it is. So there's no change. EEA has no particular control or change in how that works. And that's done on purpose. That's a very key aspect of this. And I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later. But I think we're really excited because one of the things that I've noticed, I've been doing standards for a long time, and I don't know how many of the people watching this are familiar with my background. I've been doing web and internet standards for more than 20 years now. And if you look at sort of traditional standards development, it's been done by companies with proprietary implementations. They, for whatever reason, decide to get together and create a standard. You're never going to see their software, right? So what you do is they come together, they write a standard specification, they create a test suite, and then they basically run their implementations against that test suite to prove that they are conformant and ideally interoperable. And so the key there is that, again, you're not going to see their implementations. But one of the things that's been happening more in the Ethereum space is work that begins as a single open source project. So a single open source project is essentially one piece of software. Think of it as one implementation. It may be open, but it's one implementation. But then at a certain point, there's a desire for maybe other implementations that conform with that one. Maybe it's in another programming language. Maybe it's, again, someone's proprietary implementation, and you'll never see their code, but you want to make sure that it works with the open source implementation. And so going from open source to a standard is what we saw with Baseline. I expect we'll see that in some other areas as well. And so we're pleased at the EEA, because now we don't actually care how it happens, right? Whether it starts as member projects that may have proprietary implementations, or whether it starts as an open source project that then grows to become, to add a standard on top. No matter how you do your standards development, we support it. And that's really what you should get from this particular partnership. There's a lot of excitement also, I think, on the OASIS side because of the way that we did it. And I'll let Guy talk about that and why this is such a great thing for OASIS as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Dan. And I have to give credit where credit is due. John, you were a little bit, I don't want to say the instigator of this, but I remember when Dan took over as the executive director at EEA, you said, you really need to talk to Dan. You and Dan are going to share a lot of common things around community and just the way that you two think. And so you may not have been directly involved, but you kind of poked in the right direction. So thank you for that, John. And when I had my first conversation with Dan, and this, by the way, took over, gosh, what do we say, about 10 months, almost a year, just in terms of making sure that this was right, not only for the two parties, for OASIS and for EEA, but also that it was right for the community. So for those that don't know, my background is primarily from the open source side of the house. I came to OASIS about a year and a half ago now. And I've run open source program offices in places like Red Hat and Autodesk and Samsung. And so community is kind of ingrained in the way I think. And so when Dan approached me and said, hey, we're trying to grow this Ethereum community, especially around the standards piece, and do it in a way that has an open source and an open aspect to it, I got really excited, I think, because it clearly is a way to kind of put a bigger tent around the enterprise Ethereum community and help grow that community in significant ways. And what Dan was alluding to is kind of along the way of building this partnership at OASIS, we kind of said, this actually makes a lot of sense beyond just EEA. And so the construct that we came up with, managed open projects, which is what the new EEA community projects is now an offering that at OASIS that we can use with other nonprofits. So one of the first things that I noticed my first 6 months at OASIS was that our standards experience and also kind of the way we do open source governance is something that other nonprofit foundations that didn't have that kind of a program, like EEA didn't, could potentially be something valuable for them. So we jokingly called it standards as a service. But I think this managed open projects construct that came about through this partnership and through this long negotiation and work with the EEA is something we're really excited about, because we think it's something we can offer of value to other nonprofits as well.
Yeah, that's really exciting. Go ahead, Dan.
I just wanted to add that we're particularly pleased because this gives us the opportunity to say, this is the place where Ethereum standards development happens. And along the lines of what Guy said, that's a great thing to be able to offer in other spaces as well. So, you can come in and say, hey, you already exist, right? You already exist as an entity, a known entity in the space. And now we can lend and provide our expertise and background and our reputation and ensure that it's done right. So that's actually an important part here, right? OASIS is continuing to run this. So this is not a switch in who's running it. OASIS is running it according to their processes, which are also important with respect to where the work can go as well.
Right, and that's the de jure bodies with our relationship with ISO and ITU and other de jure standards bodies, things that come out of this EEA community projects because they follow our process, which has been vetted by these other de jure bodies, can go on to become international standards.
Yeah, you guys know Todd Lewis, right? The All Things Open guy.
Yep, we do.
I was just pinging with Todd on LinkedIn a couple of days ago, and it strikes me that we are really making headway for open source. I mean, heck, we ought to be at All Things Open this year with a keynote on this subject.
You should. I'm going to be there for another reason, for cybersecurity. I'm moderating a panel on cybersecurity, but yeah, you absolutely should be there, John.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, it would be good if you guys, if you and Dan were able to stand on stage and explain this evolution, this notion of open source, openly governed open source for both standards and code development simultaneously. it's not that it's never been done before, but I've never seen it done at this scale, and I've never seen it done with this level of organization, organizational support, and it seems like it's a good bellwether for where things are going.
Yeah, I mean, it really speaks to something that I've been kind of banging on, I think, in my first year and a half here at OASIS, which is the harmonization of open source and open standards, right? I say this all the time, that the base level technologies that are allowing us to have this conversation were developed, with common standards and open source implementation. So how have we gotten sort of away from that as an industry? I think it's time to go back to the future and really focus on that harmonization of open source and open standards. Now, it doesn't mean that it's correct for everything, but I think there are a ton of areas where we could be focusing more on that and actually, bringing some value there.
Yeah, right
I have to
on.
brag just a little bit here. Sorry, the WebRTC is one of my standards that I worked on, and so that underlies a lot of the peer-to-peer communications that we're doing. So you're absolutely right. It's really wonderful how the open source community and open source work did then move into standards that are allowing for all these communications that we've relied on during the pandemic.
Right. And I mean, I think where I see this going, or where I've seen it gone, is sort of, as I look kind of as a community guy, I've looked at the standards community and looked at the open source community. And I will tell you, my first 6 months here at OASIS were a little bit, I think some of the standards people giving me this skunk eye about, okay, this open source guy is going to come in and change everything in our venerable process, and how we're very conservative and careful, and we want things to last for a long time, where those open source guys are just throwing code out there and it's iterative, and they don't think about interoperability. I saw a lot of distrust, I think, from both sides of that community, those communities, and I think it's my job and our job at OASIS to help kind of people understand. Let's take the best of both of those, right? Let's do a little bit better job, stronger governance around open source, and sort of thinking through that, helping them think more of an interoperability standpoint. And let's take the standards folks and say, look, you don't need 2 years to put something together, right? Let's do it in a little more iterative approach. So I love the way Baseline has done it with the API as the bones of that standard, and beginning to work like that. I think that is the key to doing this, to kind of break down those mistrust areas we see between communities.
It's not easy. All right, right. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I'd like to highlight Andreas Freund here, who's really among, along with Anaiso Frank, who I bet is monitoring along on the YouTube channel, as she often does. So I'll probably see a comment from her in a second. Andreas and Anais in particular have been sort of, and then Kyle over at Provide have been at this juncture point where we're trying to write the standard so that we can get it promulgated by the new year. Guy, and we know from Chet that it's going to take, that process is a good 6 months. So we want to make sure we get that out. Andreas has been writing his fingers off getting the standard in, which is really hard. You have to understand the technical nuances of what the development work is going on, which means you have to read the code. And when there's code that hasn't been checked in or is in a big blob, so you can't read it, you get out of sync with the standard, and you have to really work hard to keep things together, both on the code side and the standard side. It's the hardest piece of open source work I've ever worked on. Yeah. And I'm not even at the bearing the brunt of the load. So Andreas, maybe you can talk a little bit about your experience with this this connection point.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, John. It has been a real pleasure to work with a community on this. It's always what I always like to say. It's like reference implementations are great, but standards should not reference in any way, shape, or form any implementations, or they need to be agnostic to implementations, even though everybody who's been in the business for a little while knows that standards can be written in such a way with certain implementations, or at least implementation approaches in mind.
Oh my gosh, I remember I was an observer to the ultra wideband standards argument between, what is it, Motorola and I think Microsoft was in there, and Texas Instruments, and they were all playing shenanigans with trying to get the UWB standard written in a way that favored each of them the most, and it took an extra decade to get a UWB out because of that. It
so
can be
standard
tricky.
Is politics in a technology domain. That's how I describe it usually. You have to, if you don't have a technical background, that's table stakes. You can't even begin if you don't have the technical background to be able to comprehend the conversations. But there are, and particularly the more players that get involved and the more implementations you get, the more of this you get, where you'll have people who will begin to argue for a particular thing in the standard. And that's actually because of course, a business need that they have, but they also know that if it's done in this particular way, it can harm their competitors, prospects. And so, you need to understand that, and particularly as an editor, it's especially challenging you need to be able to understand when someone's doing that, right? And know that this is going to have these implications, and make sure that the group is aware of it, so that the proper result comes out at the end that works for everyone.
I think that's the case on the code side as well, right? So I remember early on, we're just fortunate, for example, when Kyle Thomas started working so hard on the code side of it, and other companies that had other projects to do, they kind of launched it and they had to go off and do some things. And in the interim, Kyle really stepped into the gap and built up a lot of stuff. And if he had wanted to, he could have made that so so non-agnostic, so specific to what he wanted to do, but he didn't, right? With a little nudging, he was able to, we were able to build pretty nice, nicely abstract interfaces that didn't require any particular piece of proprietary code. And we still have work to do there. I think that's what V1 version 1, which will be out before the end of the year. If hell or high water, we will do it. And V1 will be strongly biased towards not being biased.
So one interesting thing in the standard, the standard has been written in a way that looks towards the future. So there's going to be a significant focus on interoperability, because the development especially in the Ethereum community is going towards layer 2 implementation. And if you take a step back and look at baseline, you're basically saying, well, it is kind of like a layer 2, even though it doesn't scale yet. But it has all the requirements for an enterprise to be able to adopt it, while at the same time utilizing Ethereum mainnet. That is very, very similar to the layer 2 ecosystem in Ethereum, not only Ethereum, but primarily Ethereum. And there, the big challenge is that usability, especially interoperability, is becoming a significant challenge, because what has been possible right now, especially with DeFi protocols, as more and more protocols move to layer 2, you're creating more and more islands. So the hope is that the Ethereum community can learn from the baseline standard and how interoperability is defined and suggested to be implemented. Also from a requirements point of view, that they will that it will allow to have a robust, growing and flourishing ecosystem of layer 2, because let's face it, without layer 2, Ethereum isn't going to go anywhere. Everybody's moving there, and
yeah, it's almost becoming part of the stack. It's
it's part of the stack. Ethereum, it's just an extension.
You're referring to ETH2 and all the sharding and all the other stuff, plus the layer 2 stuff. It's all kind of becoming one.
Right. So and their interoperability is really a big problem. And looking into the community, there's very little focus on that for obvious reasons. Everybody wants to get their stuff done, but that leads to short-sightedness, and we hope that this standard can help educate and make people aware of the challenges and the solutions that implement, because right now it's all over the place.
Right. Yeah. So I've got a question for Samrat and also maybe for Alessandro, if you guys are willing. Samrat, you work in the Indian solution development market, and what are these standards? And these back in the day, right? Open source, you basically do a de facto standard. Like Java was a de facto standard. Nobody did standards work for that for a long time. Dan can tell a lot about that. But ultimately we do now have some standards around there. But in the early days, they just wrote some code and got people behind it, and that became a kind of a de facto standard, but very much oriented towards whatever Sun wanted, and then ultimately IBM and such. How do you see standard / open source development impacting your business in really the heartland of this kind of work? I mean, it's what is exciting to me about India really coming up in the baseline community is none of these things go anywhere until India gets behind it. So what's your thought there?
Great. So, I see Dan smiling on that one. So yeah, I think, two parts to your question. One is, of course, how is the community looking at this? And the second one, how can it really shape up, as an independent open source standard? That one, I'll pick that one up first. So I think the way, the way Ubuntu Linux or the way IBM had to get behind Linux to sort of establish it. Even for that matter, from the blockchain world, Hyperledger coming out of Linux Foundation, but now if you go to a new blockchain developer, they will always say that it's an IBM product. So the way they've sort of adopted it and given ease of development, I think that way is a big name will have to come behind us as well. I think within this group we have a good quorum. So that part is checked definitely. So I'm sure when we come out with our releases and with the kind of partnerships that we already have, we will see adoption within our partner organizations. For example, ServiceNow, SAP, Microsoft, being the enablers of a lot of business transactions. So that is number one, which I see getting established and taking off that ways. Talking about these standards getting established or being used, I think for sure, it's a developers market. As you said, India is the development hub for the world, so we will see a lot of adoption. A lot of good fintech products have also come out of India. So we will see, and even Ethereum world, for example, look at how a big mass of Ethereum developers are contributing from India, and I definitely see that this community is going to take, it's going to grab baseline with both hands and convert it into something really beautiful for us. So yeah, I think it's very, very positive. It looks very, very positive, and with the with the announcement that we make today, or the announcement that we are discussing today, I think it is just going to strengthen the efforts which can go behind establishing baseline here. So that's what my view is. Any other comments here?
Thanks, Samrat. Any thoughts, everybody?
Absolutely, the best thing to do at 5:30 a.m. on Saturday is to join Samrat.
Oh yeah,
yeah. At least it was 8:30 for me, Nick. You get the award for
big shout out to Nick.
Commitment.
Yeah. Totally. Thanks so much. So I think we are off to a good start. I got some calls from really good guys wanting to participate. They just need on-ramp material. So I think we need to create more videos way faster. And I really love the script that you started writing, John.
Oh, you like the script? I'll talk about the script towards the end today. Yeah, we're doing a 3D video, animated video of for the baseline protocol, to kind of a quick explainer video like we did with Hyperledger Fabric years ago. By the way, Nick, you really do get credit for being up at 5:30. In fact, just for everyone's information, in September we are going to be doing the TSC, the Technical Steering Committee vote for the 11 members of the technical steering committee, including my position as chair. And I'm nominating Nick Kritikos. Nick Kritikos is your. I'm kidding. Although that would be, yeah, you could do a lot worse.
I welcome the nomination, but I don't think that I'll run. I'm pretty busy.
I'm kidding. But yeah, so no, I'm not going anywhere. But I'll fight you for it. Alessandro, what's your thought? You know, working for a company like yours, how do standards and open source together, you know, impact your development in your life and your products? Have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so standards are definitely not. It's on one side we are talking about adaptation. So if we have the right standards in place, we are also able to get a better adoption about topics. But it's also about securing our development in a way, right? So if we are exploring new opportunities, new technologies, and going in one direction, and afterwards we're finding out that we developing off track, especially on topics where we talk about blockchain and cooperation and working together, collaboration on it, and that's a risk for us. It would be a high risk, let's say it this way, and that's why we definitely taking care about standards. It's a huge important topic for us. It's also interesting to see and learn from the others. I think that's a good part here in the OASIS baseline community here, is that we see also getting input from the other side, what they thought about how to solve specific problems. So we're breaking a little bit the silos here, or not only a little bit, but we're breaking the silos. And this really ensures that we are getting in the direction of being future-proof and not only developing something isolated for collaboration and finding out after 5 years that we maybe choose the wrong direction.
Right on. Yeah, I think companies like yours will be instrumental in all this because, in particular, unlike a lot of open source projects where you've got an NPM, you go and install it, you know, it's a runtime, you do it, it's pretty simple. One of the things that's, I think, actually one of the most confusing things for newcomers to baselining is they're walking in expecting some kind of a runtime that does a thing, and we're like, no, it's a technique, it's a design pattern, it's an approach. And here's some code that'll help that, but it's not exactly the same. So that's much more to standards people. I think folks like that in standards get that. In open source, there's some education to do there, and I think we're always working to be better about it. There's a lot of
actually, I wanted to comment on exactly that.
Sure.
That is why a standard is appropriate here, right? If you create an implementation doesn't necessarily mean it has to become a standard, right? You write a piece of software and it works, okay? But when you have a design pattern, when you have a need for multiple implementations that need to interact, that's when you should talk about standards. And it really is the sign of increased maturation in a space, right? To be interested in a standard, because now you're saying it's not just my product, it's not just my project, right? It's now we want the world to be able to use this, and that means many players with a lot of different drivers behind them. But we want to make sure they can all work together. So, you know, a standards play is a bigger pie argument, right? It's saying we're building a standard so that we're going to grow the pie for everybody instead of just growing your particular slice. And when you do that, everyone benefits, and you actually get increased network effects from the broader adoption and the broader usage that can dwarf having one player be primary by preventing a standard. In the end, having that broader ecosystem just makes an enormous difference going forward. And it's interesting, Andreas was talking about interoperability. I think what's going to be fascinating when you talk about layer 2 interoperability, and that's now we're getting away from baseline itself, but it would be when we start talking about layer 3s. It's the layer 3s that need layer 2 interoperability, right? It's your DEX aggregators who are going to care a lot about how the DEXs work to make sure that they can integrate together. And so I think, baseline's a little bit different because you don't have the competitors, at least quite yet in the baseline space, but it's good to start here, and it's good to show the community what can be done by starting from from a paradigm with some implementations, as you say, John, with a paradigm with some code, a little bit of like sample code, and see where you can go from there.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that V1 will have a lot of really major on is, here's the tools, here's the testing kit, here's the here's your NPM, here's all that stuff will be in there. I know let's see, is or anybody from Provide on? Yeah, Lucas and Jack. My understanding is that a lot of that stuff is going to, a lot of the stuff that they're working on will go into the open source as well, so that even the tools that they're providing will go open source, and you'll be able to inspect those and deal with it. So the more of that, and then of course there will be proprietary things around, that many companies will implement and offer around the standard. As long as everybody's using the same standard, we're good. Okay, I'm picking Kyle Bishwasher and Kyle are somewhere in the green room working out their demo for the Excel. So I'll just say that the Excel spreadsheet demo, unless they don't get on, we're going to demo today. Are there is there anything else, Guy and Dan, you'd like to say about this new development? I guess we can plug sponsorship, right? We can say, hey, if you're
Yep.
You should, if you're a company of any size, getting involved with the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance as a member is a great thing. It doesn't cost that much, and if you're, it's certainly affordable for every size of company. And then if you want to sponsor and support open projects as well, I know that. We should
Dan,
do that too.
We should actually kind of comment on that, because I know there's been some confusion about with this partnership of, oh, well, okay, do I join the EEA to support this? Do I join OASIS to support this? And our answer is yes, and or both. Right? You mentioned if you want to do member-driven types of things around these Ethereum standards, joining EEA is perfect for that. If you want to support this open projects effort and have a seat on the project governing board, then you sponsor that through OASIS. So I think, there was a lot of kind of conversation early on about what this would look like from a financial and sort of a sponsorship standpoint. And I think we've come to with Dan and his team, we've come to kind of this great conclusion of, if you're going to sponsor member driven work, going to EEA is a perfect way to do that. If you want to sponsor the open project side and work on the community side, have a voice in that, sponsoring through OASIS is the right way to go.
Right. From the EA perspective, we gave the same answer, whether you wanted to contribute to the work or whether you wanted to support the work, right? And that was to become a member. And of course, with the community projects, they are community projects, okay? So to contribute to the work, you do not need to be a member of anything. You just have to sign a license agreement.
Or you click sign the OASIS. So in our case, it's an open source Creative Commons license, right?
Exactly, but it's still a license agreement. That's what I'm saying.
Oh yeah,
There's no membership or anything like that to contribute.
Right.
But to support it, to financially support the work, the way you do that is through being a sponsor. And so we're happy either way. We want to see all of this work supported. And so I think the way Guy said it is right. If you have to decide, what is it that you're trying to accomplish? If there's something that you need to contribute in a particular way, or in particular, you want to determine what goes in, right? If you look at the community projects, the determination of what goes in the end is made by the community. It's made by the TSC, which is elected from those who have contributed. On the EA member project side, it's made by the members. Ultimately, it's the members who are deciding what it is that actually goes into a particular standard. But support whichever is appropriate for you and for the work that you're interested in doing. We believe there's strong value in supporting both, and we encourage everyone to do it. Thank you, John, for pointing out that the membership cost is not that great on the EEA side, and the sponsorship cost correspondingly is not that great on the OASIS side. So this is really it's really quite affordable. I can't tell you how much at small startups that I've worked for, I've had to pay for memberships to standards organizations or to buy specs, which
Ugh.
we're so far away from requiring that, which is what
Yeah,
ISO and ITU do, right? No, you don't have to pay to get a spec. Okay, that's just, we just don't work that way. Okay, but it's really not that much, and I don't want to sound like a salesman here, but frankly, I actually get asked why we don't charge more, and it's
you get that question too. Okay, I don't feel so bad now.
yeah, we get that question too, and we may go up at some point because we haven't raised our our membership prices in, oh my gosh, ever since we started. So I hear that there's this thing called inflation. So maybe that'll happen one of these days, but no, it's really not that expensive either way. And so thanks for the plug. We would love to have support of both kinds of work. And we welcome you. If you have work that you want to do, standards work you want to do, bring it to either of us and we will help you figure out where is the right place for that work to happen.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Dan, that because of this partnership, we actually have no problem if something comes to us and we're like, ooh, actually, you know what, that makes more sense at EEA. And I know you have the same feeling that if something comes to you and you're like, really, this should be a community thing, that you send it to us and we work through it. So this is part and parcel of this partnership that we've created.
That's right. We want one Ethereum community.
Correct.
Right?
That's the big thing. We want one Ethereum competition. Community. Correct.
All right. Well, that's great. Thanks, Guy and Dan. Please come on or as often as you like. We'd love to have you on the Baseline show. And if you want to get up at 8:30 in the morning on Saturdays, you can hang out with Samrat. And these are always published. Samrat and I are getting pretty good at publishing these or publishing the YouTube link early, so you should be able to get up there. Okay, so yeah. I'll buy more time for Kyle. I keep on getting these pings. Yeah, so we need a little more time. So they're like in the green room doing something, I guess. But
so my technical background was computer speech recognition, and I'll never forget the days. But graduate school, employment, everything. I'll never forget all the demos that we had to do for that. And live demos are just they're just the worst. People don't really understand just how much can go wrong in a live demo when it's worked perfectly for every day for a week. Everything is right. You go to do the demo and it fails. So actually getting a live demo to work there's a lot more work that goes into it than people realize. So I definitely appreciate those who try to do live demos. It's there's an art to it, and we used to say that the demo gods are never supportive. So it's really impressive, those who go to do that.
First time I ever heard the phrase demo gods, I think it was at a BMUG, a Berkeley Mac user group meeting in the 80s. And there were always demos going on. And somebody's like, one blew up. It was not, Steve Jobs was not there, but it was somebody else. Yeah.
I feel your pain, Dan and John. My story on that is that I worked at Sun Microsystems for a time back in the day, and we did a Java car. So a GM EV1 that had a ton of what was IoT, or I guess we ripped the carpets out, put Ethernet in. It was crazy. Had a bunch of connectivity demos, and it would be inevitable that I'd be trying to demo this thing to a executive from Shell or GM or somebody, and it would things would go wrong. You're like, it was just working, for the past week, and what happened? Who changed? Actually, what happened is we finally got another car. And we had one of the cars was always the in-process working car. The other one was the stable demo, don't change anything, because inevitably it was, somebody put some code in there that we weren't expecting, and crap, now it did something completely different than it hadn't done in the past week.
I just do this one little thing.
And you were hosed.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. It doesn't even have to be big. It could be, there's this one little thing. I just need to tweak it. No, don't touch it.
Don't touch the car.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's
when I was at Oracle, we ran a whole week called Top Gun, which was focused on just getting sales consultants to be able to demo live. And it was a hardcore week, over 350 people. And inevitably, you still had problems. People started moving to clickbait or, the screen cams or clickable demos after that.
Right. And that's why you don't do live demos. We actually had this problem where all of our salespeople at Sun were like, oh, hey, can you ship the car across the country to wherever? Like, do you realize what it is to ship a vehicle? Because we did it. We shipped it for the auto show in Detroit, and that was painful. And so we finally got to the point where we recorded a video, did the demo under controlled circumstances, and then we just sent the MP4 file to the salespeople and said, here, take this, because we know it works.
Yeah, I think the new demo problem for enterprise blockchain, at least for the last 5 years, has been everything went right with the demo, and the executive who had to sign off went, "Yeah, I got one of those, thanks." That was the end of the. Yeah, you didn't. Why didn't you do that with SaaS, right? So at least with with what we're doing with blockchain demos or baseline demos, we're moving towards. Hopefully something that well, actually it's so boring that you don't need a demo. It just works. It's part of the whole thing. Okay, so I just put the link in the chat for the script. Yeah, so we're doing a script for a 3D animated explainer of baselining. It's called The Little Bit. How we saved a little piece of information from becoming a big problem in a connected world, and we're shooting that right now. We've got a really great 3D animator.
Did you know there's a very popular song on the radio called "Little Bit" right now?
I did not know that.
All right, you have to look for it.
SEO SEM, that'll be a problem. But yeah, it's starting to shape up nicely. It's a little bit humorous, but should get the story home, which is. We're not putting data on a blockchain. We're not putting data on a blockchain. Don't talk about putting data on a blockchain. We're using the blockchain to keep data in other things in a state of synchronicity. Okay, so I'm going to ping one more time. Talk amongst yourselves. I'm going to try to get Kyle and Bishwashri on here. Hey Lucas, you've got stuff cooking. You wanna regale us with what's going on with the with V1?
He must be getting coffee.
That's what I should be doing. Let's see who have we got here. Sam, we got Ryan. How we doing on BRI2?
It's going pretty well. We're up to the point where we can, by hitting a single API endpoint, can create a new workflow which will write a zero knowledge circuit and compile it, and then deploy a couple smart contracts. It basically runs the setup phase where you then have a bucket to start depositing hashes or proofs on chain. So have that running, and then next step is to be able to create commitments for that workflow. So generate zero knowledge proofs and then push those on chain. So trying to come up with some automated API endpoints that'll support that functionality.
Right on. And I see that. Thanks for that, Sam. Ty Colvard, you said that you got some updates, Lauren.
Hey everyone, so my name's Tyler. I've known John for a little over a year now, and I am a pharmacist, a pediatric pharmacist by training. And here recently, me and Lauren have been doing some exciting stuff, just making connections and building bridges. And so me and her have a couple of meetings coming up to speak with both a pharmacist that I know in the outpatient setting, as well as a pharmacist on the inpatient setting who is now an assistant director at UNC Hospitals. And really what we're trying to do is we're going to be talking more about like accounts payables and invoices. So there's some exciting stuff there. Lauren, if you want to add anything, that'd be great.
Yeah, thanks, Tyler. Yeah, I'm just really excited to be able to connect in the pharmaceutical space because as John had mentioned last week, we're trying to get some interviews and some stories on what goes wrong in invoicing because we have John and Nick have the vision, to be be able to utilize baseline protocol in various industries. And I am focused on the invoicing side. So again, if there are any industries that anyone on the call today or listening in from YouTube, if you can think of if you come from an industry that you think that you would like to be interviewed, or you want to connect me, would love to speak with you. So just feel free to send me a message on the Slack channel. And yeah, just looking for really lots of stories. So thank you.
I love that story you came up with, or that you gave me the other
Mhm.
day. You want to highlight that one at all? That was very insightful.
Which one was it? Which
Oh yeah,
the restaurants?
yeah, the I don't want to say the name of the company, but
Yeah, the restaurant company.
yeah.
Okay,
Restaurant
so
company. Hey guys.
restaurant.
Oh hey Kyle. Hey.
Oh hi.
Dishwasher and Kyle.
Sorry,
Yep.
sorry, we were a little fashionably late today.
Not at all. Not at all.
Does
Let's let
anyone-
Lauren finish her
yeah.
story real quick, and then we'll get to you guys.
Of course.
Go ahead,
Yeah, of
Lauren.
course.
Sure, yeah. So what I found out with someone who worked in the accounting side for a large restaurant chain was that they deal a lot with accounts payables, and something that a problem that they would have with their invoicing is that when their landlords, that they would have to pay out rent and pay out this community service fee for when they would rent in those areas. Oftentimes it seems that landlords send them the wrong invoice. Their accounts payables clerks just key in the wrong, even the wrong company that would also be on the same shopping center premise. So this is
You get the
something
wrong
that,
invoice from the wrong, so you get somebody else's invoice.
yeah, you just get somebody else's invoice.
So
Yeah,
argument for DIDs right there. Yeah.
Yeah, so seeing that, and also seeing getting invoices for a service that actually that company had paid for as well. So instead of the landlord paying for it.
That was the one that was quite interesting to me, was this and this is where, good zero knowledge circuits and good cross company automation can really help, is where you're billing somebody for something that they've already paid for. And I found that to be, that resonated with me. I've seen that before a lot. So I was really glad to see that you'd found that kind of example. With that, good pivot over to Kyle and Dishwashery. Shall we do the demo? I've informed our friends over at Microsoft. They're in a meeting right now, but they're keen to watch the video.
Yeah, we should. And before we get started, I just want to say really awesome work by Dishwashery on this Excel stuff. It's really humbling to work with such smart people in the community, and to see the community grow in the way it has. And I think it's getting fun. So thanks, Dishwashery, for putting this together.
Thank you, Kyle. It was really fun working with you.
Yeah, it's been good.
All right, guys, take it away. If you want to share screen, I'll give me a second. I'll give you access. So yeah, go ahead.
It's still not allowing me to share my screen.
You should be able to now. Oops. Sorry, I goofed. That was my fault. We really need a professional editor in this show now. Hey, Nick, can you put that in the budget? I need some new cameras and some
John,
more gear
I've been
as well.
after you on that for about a year, so don't start throwing that crap at me.
Can you buy me a new camera and some lighting?
John, if that happens though, I got dibs on that pocket cinema you got there.
Yeah, that's right. I'll give you Kyle my old camera, and Nick will buy me.
Sounds good. I'll take it.
Go ahead,
That's a nice one. That's a nice one.
It is. All right, you're live.
Yeah, you guys can see my screen?
Yep.
So that's the new Excel add-in right there. So I'm running this baseline stack locally. So here in my IDE, I'm running it. So after I run it, now I can log in from here. So I just do an npm start on the package, and there it goes.
Yeah, on the Excel package, yeah, you can run npm start, and then this comes up. And
I
so
should say while you guys are doing this that that Bishwashri is an awardee of the EEA or the Ethereum Foundation grant for baselining, which is a $100,000 grant, and Bishwashri is now submitting this work to be given her award. How much do we award you on this, Bishwashri?
2,500.
2,500. Yeah, I think their awards are anywhere from that to $10,000. So go ahead.
So here we have a button for start baselining. So what you just need to do is click that, and for this particular table, currently all the records, the entire table will get baselined. Later on, we can move on and ensure that only parts of it does. But for now, the entire table will get baselined. So we first need to put the primary key just to let the admin know what is the primary key column for it. So I do that. I've already done it, so it's already getting baselined. Let me see right there.
Yeah, so another thing to note is I think a next step would be on the primary key, to the point of primary key mapping, is being able to sort of map how you want to do translations between the data model in the workflow that you're joining and your local spreadsheet. So I think there's another iteration coming in there as well. But sorry, Bishwashri, go ahead.
Yep. Now what I'll try to do is I will update some data here. On this line, as you can see, I'll make it 50 instead of 64. And if you can see, it's sending a message. So this is the message that I'm sending to the baseline stack.
Look at the network tab, I think would be a more, yeah, so it's still processing it, yeah. Okay.
And this is the response I'm getting back from this baseline stack. So it has a baseline ID and the proof.
Yeah, and so that's on the other side of the wire. I'm in the work group as well, and so I received a message on my end, and so it's pretty incredible to see just how far things have come when you're running Excel and making changes and seeing what we see here today.
Yeah, to have that up-to-date reporting and the synchronization amidst the reporting between both instances, I think is incredibly powerful here.
Absolutely.
You want me to try sending another message?
Yes, no.
Can we see the target spreadsheet and see the change propagate over there?
I don't have it running
Okay.
right now. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't have it. I'm just running the raw stack, Yeah, I've gotten the messages come across, but it's.
When and where? I was answering some questions on the chat, so I might have missed this. But where and when can folks get their hands on this and start playing with it?
Yeah, so I'd say probably by the end of the week we can have it marshaled into a proper PR against the baseline repo.
So it'll go into the baseline repo. People should watch for it there. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Very well. Any other questions, folks? On this? Now, I could do this with SAP as well, right? So I could take an Excel, take this and run an integration with other things other than other Excels, right?
Yeah. It's the same it's the same pattern, same messaging pattern, absolutely. And so that's sort of what I was sort of getting at when I mentioned earlier how based on the workflow, it would be nice to have a way to specify, sort of like you can specify the primary key column. It'd be nice to specify, any unmapped fields from the workflow domain model to the column names, the columns in your spreadsheet locally. That's something that I think we have some ideas on how to make pretty elegantly. I think we'll probably look into that next.
Hey, John, I have a quick question for Kyle. Was just curious, in this, is there any sort of on-chain interaction that's happening? Or I know at a minimum
it's still off chain. Like everything happens on layer 2. In this demo we're not finalizing any work steps to the blockchain. But I mean, you certainly could if a work step required finality. Then you would see it happening on chain as well. And I'd say in the next demo we show this, we can go through like an actual multi-step workflow. We're just showing a simple work step though, like just a simple general unattached work step here today.
And as we put that into production, I mean that will be exiting with finality to mainnet as well. So
yeah. It's not today, Sam, in the demo today, but it's just we're just arbitrarily executing a single step, a single step workflow that doesn't require finality right now.
Yeah, the Excel integration, basically.
Yeah. What was that? I missed that.
You're showing the Excel integration.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So now somebody could take that and start cooking that into elaborate workflows.
It's composable, yeah.
Yeah, it's composable.
Yeah. I mean, we're, the value that we see here is the synchronization between financial statements and the actual financial modeling of it. We're not actually sharing the access to the ERP here. We're actually just simplifying the synchronization, simply synchronizing the data consistency between them, and kind of just working to remediate the inefficiency, the time consumption, the manual errors that occur in these already kind of manual processes.
Nick and I were just in a meeting reviewing financials for an overall company, and we have an ARAP system, and it wasn't like they were generating they built a big elaborate Excel spreadsheet, and it didn't come off of the ARAP system. So to be able to say, verifiably these, what I'm showing on Excel is what's in our ARAP system or with, or in the other counterparties. That's a big deal. It's especially a big deal for banks. I was going to say
that as well. Yeah.
No, baselining a GL's reporting system that goes into compliance is a big deal because none of them actually report off the GL. So you as a compliance officer, you're asking yourself, has this been doctored since it came off the general ledger or not? And to say, it's been baselined. You don't want to generate it off the GL because the GL is doing work, right? So just good design. You don't want to do reporting off of that machine or that that state machine. But
so we did some security. So we throughout this process, we fortunately passed the spreadsheet between us, right? And I opened it on my machine, and I was logged in as Biswashri, and I was like, wait a minute, this is exactly how things go wrong with Microsoft Excel, And so it's just a matter of getting in there and auditing the security model, and we did that, and so now you can pass the spreadsheet back and forth, and I'm not Biswashri, so it's there's still some security work to be done, I think, on what data we marshal with the spreadsheet alongside the spreadsheet in the context of the add-in, so that I can receive the spreadsheet and open it, and then I would have to log in as well as myself. But then there's also maybe some metadata that gets passed in alongside the sheet where there's some hints on how my account, once I'm authorized, can begin locally working with massive spreadsheets. So there's some scaling and some security considerations that I've sort of have floating around in my head, and Biswashri's, I'm sure, has some. in hers. And
Well,
yeah,
now that it's possible, we got to just work hard to make it easy.
Need to
Amazing
brain
how
dump it
hard it is to
into-
make things easy.
Yeah.
Biswashri, really outstanding.
Very.
I can't wait to see your next thing. And maybe we'd like to close this out with a quick plug on your company that you're building in India. Very excited about that. And I think, I'd love to, if you have anything you'd like to say about it here that, kind of make a plug, a shameless plug, hopefully.
Currently, there's not much work going on, but I'm hoping that all this work that I'm doing here will get slowly translated there, because this is what I'll be mainly working with in trade finance.
So you're building a company on trade finance in India. Do you want to say anything about that company, or is there a website up yet for it, or?
There is, but it's like
not ready.
Put on hold right now. Yeah.
Well, I'll just say
everybody keep an eye on Biswashri. She's going to make big things happen.
I was just going to say that I would love to support Biswashri's efforts and provide. We'll absolutely work with. Can I say the name of the company? It's pretty awesome.
Nah, not unless she lets you. Are you announcing the name of the company, or you want to keep that to yourself for now?
Sorry, I put it on the spot. I don't know.
All right, we'll save that for another day. But Biswashri's in stealth mode. Everybody keep an eye on Biswashri. If you have lots of venture capital money to spend, I think you should throw it at Biswashri. Anyway,
maybe we could come back in a week or two and show some more on to Nick's point, having the other, having a dual, like having both screens shown and showing the back and forth and seeing the UX on when the cells update on the other end. It's some work's been done there. It's pretty close. It's actually no fault of Biswashri is that we can't show that right now. It's just maybe in a week or two we can hop on and do it again.
How long did you work on this, Biswashri?
It took me a little bit of time to get used to it, so that took about a month. But after that, the main work was done within a month.
A week?
So most of the work was done within a month.
Inside of a month, but you weren't working full time on it. So how many people hours do you think it took?
On a week, it was probably close to 30. On a week.
Thanks for telling us that. I mean, that's just, I want to make that point that, doing this stuff, it just takes somebody to step up and and do something like this. And it can have a big impact, and it isn't, months and months of killer effort with a big team.
Yeah.
So, well done. I think that's all of our time. We're over time, in fact, but worth it. So we'll see everybody next week on the Baseline Show. And until then, keep on baselining.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, John.
Great one. Bye, everyone.
Baseline.